Okay, hi my dears. Today we are going to do a little bit of review for Algebra 1. And so today we're going to talk about AR 2.1 and 2.6. So as we go through, I'm going to model a problem for you. You're going to mark down with me on SchoolCity. And then afterwards, you will try a practice problem on your own and you'll check your work with mine. So let's get ourselves started. Okay. A nutrition store starts a new membership program. Members of the program pay $52 to join and can purchase a canister of protein powder for $42.50. Non-members pay $49 for the canister of protein powder. After how many canisters is the total cost the same for members as it is for non-members? So what I'm going to need to do here is write a equation based on this word problem. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna point out like what is the important information here. So first of all, I'm trying to figure out how many canisters is what I'm looking for. So when I go to write my equation, I'm gonna let X, so I'm gonna use an X to be my total number of canisters. So that's my variable, okay? Then I see that there is a one-time fee for the members to join, which is the $52. So $52 is my one-time fee. And I also see that those members get to purchase the protein powder for $42.50, and that's that's each canister. And so anytime we think of the word per or for every single one, that means we're going to have to do some kind of multiplication. Okay. Non-members are going to pay $49 for a canister of protein. So every protein powder. So again, it's that per number again, $49. That is per canister. And that is, again, going to be multiplication. So these first two are for my members. And then this one down here, this is for my non-members. So the question is, how many canisters does it take for the total cost to be the same for both members as it is for non-members? So I want these two equations to be equal to each other. So I'm going to say, okay, I've got a one-time fee for my members of $52 plus the $42.50 per canister. So for every canister, and so I'm going to come over here, it's $42.50 times my variable here, right? Because we said X is my number of canisters. So it's this much money, $42.50 times the number of canisters, plus I have to give that one-time fee of $52. And I want to know, when is that going to be the same or equal to the non-member price? And the non-member price says $49 per canister. So $49 times my number of canisters, which is my X. So this is my equation. So I'm going to come over here, see which one matches my equation. It looks like letter B matches my equation. Now, I've already got that written, so now I'm going on to part B. After how many canisters is the total cost the same for members as it is for non-members? So essentially, all I'm looking for you to do now is to actually solve the problem. So it's just an algebra problem that we're going to solve. So when I solve my algebra problems, I always like to put a line down my equal sign. That way I can see what's on the left and what's on the right side. So if I look on the left, there's no like terms to combine. Same if I look at the right side of this orange line, again, no like terms to combine. So my next step is I'm going to get all of my variables, all of my x's to the same side. And so I always try to move the smaller one, because if I move the smaller variable, I don't have to work with negative numbers. So this is a positive $42.50. I'm going to do the inverse operation, which would be subtraction. So whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other. And I'm going to work from left to right. So these will cancel. I'm left with 52 equals 6.5x. And then to get x by itself, this is 6.5 times x. This is multiplication. So to undo, or the opposite of multiplication, the inverse is division. So I'm going to divide the right side by 6.5. And again, whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do the and I end up getting 8 equals x. So After how many canisters is the total cost the same? After 8 canisters. Okay, now go ahead and pause the video. You are going to try example number 2 on your own, and then come back to the video and check your work. Your answer for number 2 should be letter D is the correct equation, and then your X value is equal to 28. Okay, next problem. Number 3. A group of friends decides to go out of town to a championship football game. The group pays $185 per ticket plus a one-time convenience fee of $15. They also each pay $27 to ride a tour bus to the game. If the group spent $2,771 in total, how many friends are in the group? Just like my last problems, this is going to follow the same sort of setup where I'm looking for what's my important information, looking for some key terms, so if I see that word per, and then writing my equation based on what I have here. So one of the things that I see that's important is it is $185 per ticket. Okay, so each ticket you get one ticket per person, right? So I really want my X to be my number of friends or number of people, right? I'm trying to see how many of us are there in this group. So I know it's $185 per ticket, or per person really, because each person gets one ticket. And again, anytime I see that word per, that's going to be multiplication. I also see the one-time convenience fee of $15. So that's a one-time fee. They also paid $27 to ride the tour bus, and it says each person pays $27. So if it's each person, again, that's kind of like a per. So it's $27 per person in order to ride the bus. So again, that's going to be a multiplication. So notice either it's always multiplying, or really you're saying a one-time fee. In total, the group spent this $2,771. So I know that when I write my equation, I want to set it equal to that total amount. So I've got $185 per ticket or per person. So 185 times each person, which is my variable X, plus I also have $27 per person, right? Because they're riding the bus. So again, 27 times X, plus I have a one-time fee, and that's just a one-time, it's not per person, it's just a one-time fee of $15. And in total, I know this whole thing should equal $2,771. So I've got my equation, and now I'm going to solve for X. So just like I said before, I like to put a line down my equal sign, and then this way I can see the left and right side of the equation. All right, so if I'm looking at my equation to the left of the green line, I want to see, are there any like terms I can combine? Yes, there are. Both values with the X's, I can combine them together. So I get a total of 212 X's when I combine them. And then I just rewrite everything else as I see it. Okay. Now I've got nothing else I can do on the left side of the line. There's no more like terms, and there's nothing to do on the right. So now I'm trying to get the variable all by itself. So I want to get this 15 to the other side. And in order to undo, I'm going to do the inverse operation. So the opposite of adding 15 is going to be, oops, work, little pen, come on, subtracting. And again, whatever I do to one side of the equation, have to do to the other. So on the left, I'm left with 212x equals 2,756. And now I'm almost done. I want to get x by itself. This is 212 times x. And so the inverse, or the opposite of multiplication, is division. So I'll divide both sides by 212. And I get a total of 13. So in total, there were 13 friends in the group who went to the championship game. Okay, so now take a moment, pause the video, and you're going to try both number 4 and number 5 on your own, and then come back and you can check your work with mine. So here's number 4 and number 5, our final 2 answers there. So go ahead and pause if you need to. Go ahead and take a look at my work and see if yours matches with mine. Okay, number 6, another word problem. Now, it's the same sort of setup. However, for these problems now, we're getting into some inequalities. So let's take a look at number 6. So it says the expression 45H plus 225 represents the total cost in dollars of renting a large party tent from a local rental store for H hours. Jamal's parents are willing to spend between $500 and $750 for the tent. Write one inequality to represent the possible lengths of time the tent can be rented. So it does say to make sure you write your equation using H as your variable. Now, in this problem, I'm already given the expression 45H plus 225. And that already tells me that is the representation of total cost in dollars. What I'm trying to figure out is Jamal's parents are willing to spend between $500 and $750. So this is my minimum value that they're willing to pay, and $750 is my maximum value. So all I really want to do is take these numbers and I want to write it as one inequality. And remember, an inequality means you're going to have either a less than or greater than symbol, or a less than equal to, greater than equal to. So this means if you've got the little lines underneath, that means equal to, that means includes. And then if it doesn't have that little line, then this means it is not included. So in my problem here, they're spending between $500 and $750. Jamal's parents are willing to actually pay the $500. So that's going to include the $500 and include the $750. So I want to make sure I'm using these ones with the little equal sign underneath the inequality. So at the smallest amount, my minimum is $500. And I know that my expression has to be greater than or equal to that 500. But it has to be less than or equal to my maximum, which is 750. So essentially all I'm doing is really putting that minimum and maximum value on the either side of the expression, and then just making sure I have my greater than or less than symbols correct. So that will be my first equation, or my inequality, excuse me. Now, the second part of the question asks you, once as you use that inequality, give one possible length of time the tent could be rented. So essentially what I need to do now is solve these two problems like it was an algebra expression. I'm going to solve for H, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the two of these problems so I can solve them individually. So I'm going to start with just this one over here on the left, saying that it has to be, my number of hours has to be greater than or equal to the 500. So I'm just going to rewrite the equation. I'm going to solve this like an algebra problem. Instead of an equal sign, I've just got a less than or equal to sign. So I'm going to still treat this exactly the same like I did with the other problems. Draw a line down my sign, and I'm going to solve. On the left of the green line here, there's nothing to do. There's no like terms. On the right side, again, no like terms. So my next step is I need to get all of the constants to the opposite side of where the variable is. So the H is over here. So I want to move the 225 from the right to the left by doing the inverse operation. And the inverse of addition is, of course, subtraction. So I work from left to right always. Let's see. It is 500 minus the 220. Should have brought my calculator. Okay. Okay, so 275. Okay, and then that cancels on the right. And now I've got 45 times H. I'm trying to get H by itself. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So when I divide, I get about 6.1. So this says that my number of hours has to be greater than or equal to, 6.1. So my H has to be greater than or equal to 6.1. And now that's just the minimum value, right, for my inequality here. I still have to do the maximum. So now I'm going to do the maximum exactly the same way. And I'm going to instead look at the right side here of my inequality. So I'm going to rewrite it. 45H plus 225 is less than or equal to 750. Again, just solving this like an algebra problem. So I want to get the H by itself, so I'm going to subtract 225 from both sides. Equal sign. Okay, working from left to right, I get 45H is less than or equal to 525. And then I divide both sides by 45, so I can get the H by itself. And I get H has to be less than or equal to, this is about 11.6 repeating. So my number of hours have to be greater than or equal to 6.1, but less than or equal to 11.6. Meaning I need to pick a number between essentially 6.1 and 11.6. So that could be like 7 or 8 or 9. All of those things will work. So any number that is in between those two. Okay. So we've now done number 6. Go ahead and pause the video, try number 7, and then come back and check your work with mine. Okay, here's number 7. Pause and check. Make sure yours looks like mine. Okay, the last part we're going to do, last questions here, is we're going to practice taking inequalities and compound inequalities, and we're actually going to graph them on a number line. Now, remember, when you're solving for an inequality, if you divide by a positive number, the sign does not change for your inequality. If you divide by a negative value, the sign changes or flips. So if it was a less than symbol, it becomes a greater than symbol, and vice versa. The compound inequalities just mean more than one inequality together. We actually just did a compound inequality problem. They looked kind of like this number 2 here, which is the same as these ones that have the and. There's also ones that have the word or in it as well. So when you see the word and in it, that means it includes both of them. But if we see the word or, that means obviously you're only choosing one or the other. It does not have to be inclusive of both of the pieces. So let's take a look and we'll practice graphing. The other piece when graphing inequalities that we need to remember is when we look at our signs, if they do not have that equal sign underneath it, right? So just the greater than or less than symbols, that means it is going to be an open circle. And if I have greater than or less than or equal to, if I've got that equal to sign, then it is going to be a closed circle. And that is very important. So we need to make sure that we do that. Okay, so let's take a look at, what number is this? Number 8. Okay, solve and graph the solution set only of the following inequality. So I really just want the final answer for this one is what I'm asking you for. Okay. So for each one, I'm going to solve it essentially like an algebra problem, like we've been doing for x, and then I'm going to graph them each separately. So I'm going to start with, negative 4x plus 8 is less than 8. I'm going to start with this one here. Ooh, come on, little buddy, work. Okay. All right. So on the left, I have nothing I can combine together. On the right, again, no like terms. So I'm just trying to get the x value by itself. So I'm going to start by moving this 8 over to the other side by doing the inverse operation. Going from left to right, I'm left with negative 4x, these will cancel, is less than 8 minus 8 gives me 0. And then again, this is multiplication, so to undo, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. And be very careful, because we divided by a negative, I have to change the direction of my sign. So this was a less than symbol. It is now going to become a greater than symbol. 0 divided by negative 4 just gives me 0. So my first part of my graph is saying x is greater than 0. So any number bigger than 0 will work. Because there's no equal to sign, this is going to be an open circle when I go to graph it. Okay, my next one, I'm going to do the same thing now. Solve for x. So I've got negative x over 3 is less than 2. Okay, again, algebra problem. So right now this is division. This is, there's no number in front of the x. I can put a 1 there, right? Because that even though I don't necessarily need that constant, it still can be there. So I've got negative 1 divided by 3. So to undo this divided by 3, I'm going to do just the opposite of dividing, and I'm going to multiply the left by negative 3. I'm also going to multiply the right by negative 3. So these will cancel here. I'm left with just the x. But again, be careful, because I'm multiplying by a negative number, my sign has to flip. So this now goes from a less than symbol to a greater than symbol. 2 times negative 3 gives me negative 6. And again, there's no equal to, so this becomes an open circle. Now, when I go to actually graph this on a number line, I now have 2 different pieces. I like to do them separately and then combine them together for my final answer at the end, because I think it's just a little bit easier to do it that way. This will be negative 6, 4, 5, and this is positive 6. Okay, so if I'm looking at this one over here, the first problem that we did in orange, x is greater than 0. That means any number at 0 that is bigger than that will be part of that solution. So at 0, I make an open circle, if my pen would work. And then this is any number greater than, so I go to the right. So there's my first part. Now, if I look at this second part of the equation, x is greater than negative 6. So I come to negative 6, and it's any number that is greater or to the right of that. Now, this is not my final answer, though. My final answer is going to be because this problem is all about the or, okay? Or is saying choose one that is inclusive of the other one. So if I'm looking here at my picture, overall, if I were to pick just this orange one, I'd be missing out on this whole part of the green. But if I pick the green one, then I get all of the green and all of the orange. So my final graph is going to be just what this green line is here. So I'm going to redraw my number line. Here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so my final answer is going to be at negative 6, open circle, and then to the right, because that's now going to include everything over there. So when you see the word or, okay, when you see the word or, that means choose one that includes the other. Okay, so the one that will encompass every single piece of it. If you see the word and means you're only doing the part where they overlap one another. Okay, so that's very important. If you see and, you're choosing the parts of the graph that overlap. Or means you are choosing the one that includes the other. So it's all of the pieces all together. Okay, so now take a moment, Last problem for you to try is number 9. Pause the video, go get it a try, come back, view it, and see if yours looks the same as mine. Here should be your solution set for number 9. Final one is right here. And again, because it's an and, we're choosing the part of the graph where it overlaps. So -7 all the way to -1. Okay, that was your review. So now you'll go back to SchoolCity, and it is time to complete the actual student practice part as well as the exit ticket. Okay, thanks guys. Hope you have a grand day.